Hey guys, welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. As usual these days, I'm trying to get Instagram to respond to me, and it's not. Okay, now it's almost ready. Here we go. I'm going to launch it, guys, and then I will start us up. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. It's great to be here with you all, and of course, we are here to talk about mind-body issues. Now, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. Why am I talking about mind-body issues? Well, of course, I am an expert in the mind-body field, but I also am a former sufferer. And I do find that's often a very important part of how people think about me and how I can be of help is that I've been through it. So I went through 8 years of chronic, well, seemingly chronic, thankfully it wasn't, everyday excruciating back pain. And it turned out, though I did not know it at the time, it came from what are called mind body issues. So let's start talking about that. Mind body issues are the things that happen in your mind, feelings or thoughts, and how they get channeled into your bodily experience. That can happen in acute symptoms, it can happen in seemingly chronic symptoms, it can even happen in just everyday experiences like crying or blushing. That's a feeling state that leads to a physical change. But I'm here to talk about what happens when that goes awry, when it either is leading to really uncomfortable acute symptoms that scare people sometimes or just are very bothersome, or when it lingers for a long time. I'm also here to talk about when it's kind of hangs on even after you've gotten a sense of the mind body experience. So, I'm going to talk about my column system. This is the system that I developed as I got better. I first discovered the works of Dr. John Sarno. He is was a fantastic doctor and a fantastic person, and his book saved my life. But I did need to expand on what he said to really understand what was happening for me. And once I did that, I found, to my great pleasure, that it really was a system that worked for everybody. It was more universal. At first, I thought it was just me, and that's how I worked. But as I explored it, I found that these 3 columns describe everything that happens in mind-body experience. I'll get into those in a second. I do want to say hi to some people. Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everyone. Dorisa, it's good to see you here. Catherine Toomer's here with us on Instagram. Rita has joined us. Scotty Styles, good to see you. Nice hello and emojis as usual. And Rita, thank you for your nice emojis as well. So we've got a bunch of regulars here, but for people who just come in, I want to encourage you to ask questions about even just what I'm talking about, but also about the column system. I also want to encourage you out there, the people who already know about the column system, there's no stupid question ever, never, ever, ever. In fact, why am I doing this Q&A? Well, I do this Q&A because you all do have questions. We all have questions. I had tons of questions as I was trying to get better. And what did I need? I needed trusted sources that could give me really good answers. And that's part of my job. If I give you an answer that doesn't feel like it answers it fully enough, then there's a follow-up question. And you could ask it today, or you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. I also have resources where you can come see me weekly because I have group memberships. You can get this on my website, www.crushingdoubt.org. You can come see me Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, all 3, one of them, 2 of them, whatever works for you. I set up these systems so that people could get answers to questions. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the column system. What I noticed, because as I was reading Dr. Sarno, I noticed that there were 2 main things that he said that really stuck with me most, although there was a lot that he said that stuck with me. One was that emotions could cause severe symptoms, including this back pain. So that was of interest to me. But I also found that it was important that he said you have to accept the diagnosis to get better. You have to really know it is mind body and not be worried, but maybe it's a, disc problem or whatever nonsense things that we now know are nonsense, could describe it from a structural angle. You needed to get certain about that. As I thought about those 2 main things, that started to build out the first 2 columns. The emotions column is based on what I learned from Sarno and other books that I read following up and talking to people about the fact that your feeling states can lead to symptoms. Where my system is different, and it's called the column system because I would have people divide it into 3 columns, a sheet of paper, so that we could organize mind-body experience. There's 3 reasons for mind-body symptoms. One is in the emotions column. Your feelings, when they're unconscious, can lead to onsets and upticks in symptoms. This is one where that I differ from some people in the mind-body field. I have very specific ways of understanding each moment and what's happening with you Wanted to say hi to Mary Pink Health also. Thanks for joining us here. And Scotty Styles, I see your question. I'll get to you in 1 sec. So the emotions column is for onsets and upticks in symptoms. Usually in the mind-body field, what you'll hear is, yes, emotions can cause mind-body symptoms, but they don't codify it so well. They don't help you understand when it's happening, why it's happening then, or what to do about it. I have ways of discovering these emotional experiences and helping you map them out so that you have almost an emotional menu that can recognize, why did this onset happen here? What was bothering me? And by becoming aware of it, you take away that symptom function. The symptom function is to distract you. It is in the emotions column. It is there to distract you from an unconscious emotion. As soon as you discover that unconscious emotion, that distraction is no longer needed. So in each column, there's one function. If we take away that function, we take away that kind of symptom. In the emotions column, that's taking away acute onsets and upticks of symptoms. In the doubt column, the function of the symptom is protection. It is there to protect you from anything. Doubt is like a helicopter parent. It thinks you're in danger all the time. And so it brings in thoughts that worry you. It just brings in constant worry over and over and over. That worry is designed to shut you down from taking action or from moving forward with things or doing anything that might put you in danger. But the problem is, a lot of times you're not in danger. And we have to work through the thinking that leads to these doubt-related experiences. So this was an important find for me because feelings can lead to symptoms, but so can thinking. And that made a lot of sense to me with my back pain because I wasn't having the same feeling for 8 years. Not a chance. But I was having pretty similar thoughts. And a lot of the thoughts were about the experiences that I had. So we can start to have thoughts about the symptoms, and that can generate symptoms or perpetuate them. Longer term symptoms, seemingly chronic, are doubt column symptoms. And if we take away the need for protection, we take away the symptom function, and those symptoms can also stop. What usually happens with doubt column symptoms is they start breaking up. They start coming and going more. Their patterns change, and then you're onto something. Lastly, the power column. The power column is something I discovered only after I got better. And it was something that showed me that I'll say it this way. When I got better, I started to feel so powerful because I knew something that so many other people did not. And that was a great feeling for certain. But then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, if these are correlated, maybe I could actually use power to help manage symptoms. And I just started exploring that. What I found is there's a very important aspect of mind-body experience that I don't hear people talk about really. And that is first of all, the way you recognize power column symptoms is if you hit a plateau. So generally, you don't discover power column issues until you're well into the healing process. Healing, I almost put in quotes because you're not healing, you're reorganizing, you're shifting how you think. Once you've got acute symptoms more under control, and once those seemingly chronic symptoms aren't dominating your life and you feel more on your way, if you still have symptoms hanging around, that's a symptom plateau. And that is a power column experience. Now, the power column, what is its function? Its function is communication. There is a part of you, unconscious also, and somewhat similar to the emotions column. They're both emotional columns. In the emotions column, it's a distraction and it doesn't want you to know about things. But guess what? In the power column, it's the exact opposite. It is unconscious, but it does want you to know. It's trying to communicate something to you. If you receive that communication, those symptoms go away too. So we've got 3 ways to understand symptoms, 3 functions we can take away that can get us out of symptoms. Now, I've taken up enough time explaining, though I do like to do it at the beginning because it's good review for everybody and also for new people coming on. They really need to hear this or they won't understand the context. Now we can get into answering questions. And why is that so important? Because no matter what column you're working in, the bottom line is it has to make sense. I needed it to make sense for me. And what I found in talking to people is that people really seem to agree with me on that things making sense really helps. First, it brings down doubt, but it also makes us able to do that emotional work. So I got to answer your questions and they got to be to your satisfaction. So please do ask follow-ups as needed. I will say one last thing. On my website, www.crushingdoubt.org, you can get, there's a couple different resources, but there's 2 main ones before my book comes out, which is soon. One is the seminar. The seminar are pre-recorded sessions with me. They're 8 sessions, 75 minutes long, and they map out all of mind body experience, all about the columns, so that you can learn not only what to do about all of this, but bring your doubt way down. They're fantastic for that. But I found that people then need help implementing the system more. And that's what the groups are for. And when you come to see me on these Zoom calls, they're not recorded. And we talk there. It's somewhat similar to this, but it's even better in a lot of ways because those follow-up questions can come back and forth. We get so much further in one sitting in group. So if you have questions about it, email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. Okay, let's get to the questions. Scotty Styles, thank you for your patience. Scotty asks on Instagram, how would you apply the 3-column system to unnecessary repetitive thoughts? Okay, that's a great question. We have had some people ask questions about obsessions or OCD thinking. That's somewhat similar to this, unnecessary repetitive thoughts. So here's the way I think about it, Scotty. And again, I want you to follow up as needed. But I think of everything now as symptoms. Um, when I first started this out, I thought, okay, well, we'll start with back pain and other musculoskeletal stuff. And then I was like, but I'm pretty sure this applies to IBS and it applies to headaches and it applies to um, rashes and things like that. And I kept finding out more and more about it. Sure enough, it all did relate. But what I found is this really expands to everything. Almost anything can be a symptom. How you are thinking in a given moment is often a symptom of the moment. Good or bad, by the way. You can have a good symptom. I guess I'll put in quotes. Um, Basically, our brains and our bodies, they're one. So I like to think of this entire thing as my brain. And if I'm having an unnecessary repetitive thought, there's a couple things I want to say about it. First thing is this. I understand why you would categorize it as unnecessary and it can feel unnecessary. But the way I want you to think about it in the column system is there's one assumption I ask people to make, which is you make sense and your symptoms make sense. Now, if you make sense and your symptoms make sense, then it's actually not unnecessary. It's going to prove to be unnecessary, but it's not at the moment. It's a defense against something. So I would want you to think of it as a defense. The first place I would look actually is the doubt column, because doubt wants to keep you distracted, worried. These thoughts tend to be very worrisome thoughts. We don't tend to have obsessive, repetitive thoughts about, oh, life's so great and feel bothered by that. Generally, we're just like, I love that. So it's a doubt actually that's coming in. First, you're going to need to dismantle the doubt. Then you're going to need to discover what's the emotion underneath. So I would look in the emotions column next. The emotions column is for onsets and upticks and symptoms. And I'd say to myself, well, I wasn't having these thoughts 10 minutes ago or 3 hours ago, whatever it was. And I would go back to the timing of the symptom and try to figure out what got this symptom going. But Scotty, I think the place to start is to define these unnecessary repetitive thoughts as a symptom. They're a symptom of something. They have a meaning. And we need to figure out what it is. Let's start there. And I want your follow-up question from that, because these are great questions and a great, I want to say one other thing just about the questions in general. That is a great question. And I'm sure it was helpful to a lot of people, Scotty, but that's part of the point of this. I want to help you. I want to help each person who asks the question, but every one of these questions is something that can help more people understand more. So whenever I'm asking a question, even if it seems like it doesn't relate to you, what I want you to do, and I tell people in group to do this too, is to focus on how does this increase your overall understanding of what's happening? And if we just keep doing that, you're going to get where you need to go. Okay, Scotty, I see you said thank you. It's my pleasure. It sounds like I hit the mark with that, but I want to hear more. Okay, there you are reporting more, but I want to say hi to somebody first. DMR LCSW is here. Good to see you, DMR. I assume LCSW is your degree. Thanks for joining us here. Please do let me know if you have questions. Okay, Scotty then says the emotion is fear, and it's irrational fear. Okay, so when it comes to fears, there's multiple ways of dealing with that, but fear is a form of doubt. It's actually what I call the emotional form of doubt. So I think I actually hit the nail very much on the head there. We need to look at the doubt first and bring it down just to calm things down enough to then look at the emotional side. And what I would do there is to get that more put into words. What is that fear? And I think it's going to be very key to look at the emotional timing of that, Scotty. So let's actually go there next. Now that we know this, If your doubt is down enough, which I can kind of tell that it is enough because you're able to ask a question. Questions are the gold standard of doubt. What do I mean by that? They are still a doubt. You're not sure about something, but they're in the best form to get you answers. You're not super afraid. You're not as confused as you were before because these are the forms of doubt: fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and questions. If your fear is down enough, I know you're having fear, but you're able to take a step back and ask these questions. That means your fear is not that high, which is good. Your confusion, probably on the relatively low side, given that you are a coach in the field and you understand a lot of this stuff. Lack of certainty you might have. We can talk about that. That's garden variety doubt. And then lastly are these questions. So we just need to look at each doubt and get it answered to your full satisfaction. Once you do that, then I want you to look at the timing of the emotion, the timing of the symptom, and we'll see what emotion is there. Let's do follow-up from there, Scotty, okay? Thank you for the question. Okay. Mary, thanks for joining us here. Hi, Dan. I finally accepted last week that my chronic stuffy nose was TMS. So TMS is tension myositis syndrome, which is what Sarno called the condition that led to a lot of musculoskeletal symptoms, but he eventually understood that it extended much further and even changed the name to tension myoneural syndrome to show that it was throughout the body. So back to the question. I just wanted to explain that. Mary says, I finally accepted last week that my chronic stuffy nose was TMS and the symptoms started to fade away. Oh, this is awesome. It was liberating for nearly a week. Now I see there is a follow-up. This is still good news no matter what you tell me because you're on the right path, but let's hear. However, the stuffy nose has come back and now I'm experiencing pain in my nose. I'm having wild thoughts that there's something more sinister going on. How do I get my thoughts back on track? Okay. I have many ideas, Mary, but as always, I'm going to give you my initial response and then I want you to follow up. The first thing is this. In any column, in any situation, the very first thing you work on, if it is present, is doubt. I often say, when in doubt, work on doubt. Okay? So you worked on doubt before about whether this was TMS. You were having doubts about it. That's something I call level 1 doubt, which is the baseline doubt. Is this mind body or is it not? Right? Now, I think you started to get past that with the first one, but doubt is very tricky and it's never going to give up. It always wants to find the next one. So what did it do? I'm just going to show you what it did because this is actually going to bring down your doubt. It said, well, okay, now I'm going to give you pain. And first, I'm going to have it come back, which is going to make you doubt it. And then I'm going to give you another symptom that's going to make you doubt it. But here's the thing that really can crack the doubt. I think. It doesn't matter what I think. It's going to matter what you think about it, but I'm going to lend this to you anyway. What do we think about the fact that you were able to essentially make it go away for an entire week, first of all? That sounds like a mind-body experience. If it were something else, you wouldn't have been able to make it go away in the first place. What do we think about coming back? I don't think it's likely that it would be another physical event separately. And I also don't think it's likely that this physical event or physical experience or situation went away and then came back. So that's also not making sense unless we're thinking in a mind-body way. And then this is the one that really cracks it open for me. You now have a new symptom just at the moment you started to believe. Now, I know it's not exactly to that moment because you did have a week of good experience, but the minute doubt came back in, it knew it needed something stronger. So it built up a new symptom. Now, what are the chances that you would suddenly develop a new symptom right when your mind changed? That to me is the key. As soon as you guys see that the power of the mind actually does lead to physical change, we're off to the races. Then you know. And so, Mary, you're actually, I know you're feeling discouraged by that probably, and you're saying, how do I get my thoughts back on track? Hopefully this will help you do that, though, because this is actually a very typical pathway. You defeat doubt once, and it's going to try again. But if you defeat it twice, it's going to start to get scared of you. It's going to start to say, oh, no, she's on to me. She knows exactly what's going on. I'm going to have to be more subtle about it. And I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. If you push through this doubt, and you can be certain, and I'll help you get certain about it, that this is just more TMS, more mind body, whatever we're going to call it, it will give up and you'll make more gains. And every time you make a gain, the stronger you get. One of the reasons I'm, as able to do what I can do in this work is I have defeated doubt thousands of times. So it's not that I don't have doubt. It's just that when it shows up, I'm like, I think you know me. and I think you know you're in trouble. And it's true. So I just have a lot of confidence in my own battles against doubt. In fact, I would say more confidence than anyone I know about this. It's part of why I think people find me um, helpful in this regard. And it's a particular way that I can help people is with my certainty. I can guarantee you this is mind body, but it doesn't matter what I think. Let's do some follow up, Mary, though, and see, did what I said just now start to make cracks in doubt? Because one thing I want to encourage you and everybody else here is when you start to look at doubt, we have a huge advantage. The minute you start to look at it, it's in trouble. It's like if somebody's lying to you, the longer they have to tell that lie, the more exposure there is, the more likely it is they're going to get caught in the lie. That's what doubt is. Doubt is a pathological liar. We're going to catch it in the act. Mary, I want you to tell me if that makes sense, and let's do follow up as needed, okay? All right. Dorisa says, being stuck in doubt, always overthinking. I do Qigong, let's see what else, yoga, etc., to stay in the moment, but I still have some plateau issues. Okay, then. Made a connection yesterday that I'm still in the trauma response. Yep. As I want control, and from my trauma, I know I'm not. I want to be able to relax, but I get stressed when I'm trying to deal with them. Get so frustrated when others don't respond in a timely fashion. Okay, Teresa, I have a certain idea about this, and I'm gonna lend it to you, and then I want you to follow up. So what you're describing is basically a plateau. You've gotten better to a certain point, but you're kind of getting stuck. And when I hear the word frustration, that is a word that often tells me there's a power column thing going on here. Frustration is a sign that you've gotten a lot of the way, but you're not getting the whole way. That's when frustration happens. I mean, people can get frustrated about when they haven't gotten doubt to move at all, but that actually tends to be higher than frustration. That usually is more like rage, hopelessness. When I hear frustration, I know we're moving in the power column direction. Meanwhile, you also said plateau issues, right? And people know what they're talking about. You know what you're talking about. I also know you've been working at this for long enough that your doubt's lower than a lot of other people. So you're having a power column experience. And what is the power column really at base? It is about your relationship with you. So it's trying to communicate something. I know I said that, but I want to, go back, double back to that and talk about what the power column is. It is about your relationship with you. And I think your symptoms, Dorisa, want you to get to an even more powerful position. And so whether we work at it here or if you'd like to come on the group, because you already know all about the column system, you don't need anything else other than to jump right in. We could just do even a couple sessions talking about the power column. And we would do, there's a couple of tasks in each column. In the power column, it is to create your core narrative, which I'll talk about in a second, and to assess for power and adjust. Assessing for power and adjusting happens more after you've got the core narrative down. So if I were to talk to you either here in the group, wherever, our job is going to be to get that core narrative in place. What is the core narrative? That is the story of your core suffering self, meaning you've got lots of different parts of your identity, but how have you suffered most? We need to get that story really well organized so that you can understand it. And why? Because if we get that done, then you will have received the communication. These symptoms won't need to be there for that. So that's where I'm going to start with you, Dorisa. I want you to follow up. I certainly understand that. You had another question here. How do I remain less anxious about these things? For me, anxiety comes down when I understand things. So hopefully what I just said in terms of the power column explains why is this happening now? It's not bad news. It doesn't mean you're stuck. It doesn't mean things are going to be bad. But when you can't explain what's going on, that's when we get worried. So I want you to see what do you think about what I said about doing specifically some power column work? We can do it here if you want, but that's what we need to talk about. Okay, let's talk about it, Dorisa. Okay, I want to say hi to a couple of other people who have come on Instagram. Rizzy Rasta Biggie Papa is here. Dennis Fleck, thank you for joining us. The elementary school counselor has joined us. Good to see you here. And Team DeMeo has joined us as well. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. By the way, if I ever miss a question, it's very important that you just follow up with it again. Let me know. I never mean to miss a question because I know how that would feel, especially with somebody who is here to take care of people. So I never want you to feel ignored. I value you all. So please do let me know if I do miss a question. I'm going to try to get them all in. Okay. Rhiannon, good to see you here. Rhiannon said, "Hi, Dan. Can you talk a bit more about emotions and how to deal with them? Are emotions feelings or thoughts? And how should we listen to emotions without reliving them and just feeling worse?" Okay. Great questions. I'm going to give you my initial answers as always, but let's do some follow up as needed, Rhiannon. So, first of all, emotions are feelings. They can have thoughts that happen with them, but those thoughts are secondary to the feelings. All right. So, your first question, can you talk a bit more about emotions and how to deal with them? Well, in the columns, there are two columns that are emotional in nature and one that is thinking in nature. Doubt is thinking in nature. You want to be focused on those thoughts. And I know that's when you and I first met, we focused on the doubt column almost exclusively. There were a lot of thoughts that needed to be gotten under control and getting you to a place where you felt really confident about this. So that's the thinking part. When it comes to the feeling part, there's the emotions column and the power column, and I'm going to tell you how they relate to emotions. So the emotions column is where emotional experience that's outside of our awareness distracts us and leads to the onset or uptick of a symptom, right? So how do we deal with that kind of emotion? That kind of emotion, we just want to become aware. We don't even need to handle it, which actually I think your other questions are more about how to handle it, which is why it's a power column question. I will get to that in a second, but the power column is where you decide what you're going to do about your emotional experience. The emotions column is simply where you recognize it. I just need to know it so that it doesn't distract me with these symptoms. So, first step, get that doubt down. This is the flow chart of the columns. Get that doubt down. Next step, look at the emotions, learn about your emotional themes, get them organized so that you've got kind of a menu from which to recognize, why did that symptom come on then? What was bothering me? Boom, I got it. Now, as soon as you have all that information, Rhiannon, now we're going to move over to the power column. We're going to look at, what does all this mean in your overall emotional world and your relationship with yourself? That's the power column. And then this gets to your other questions. Okay. So you said, can you talk a bit more about emotions and how to deal with them? I've just told you how to deal with the onsets and upticks and how to become aware of them. But now it's how to deal with them. That was your next question. Well, it's very hard to know how to deal with emotions if you don't know where you're at with yourself. But if you know yourself well enough, you're going to have a much easier time. So actually, I think the main answer I have to your question, Rhiannon, is we now need to do more of that power column work. I know we've done some of it, but we need to look back at it again. And here's what we most need to do, because we've done, I think we did core narrative work, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm sorry, sometimes don't remember who I worked with on which, but I'm pretty sure we did. And if you have that in place and it's a really good core narrative, then you've already nailed who you are and how you're operating. Then we can move to the other part of the power column, which is assessing for power and adjusting. That's actually what you're asking about. How do I deal with these emotions? I think you know about these things, right? So I already answered, our emotions, feelings, or thoughts. Thoughts can happen because of them, but these are mainly emotions. Then you said, and how should we listen to emotions without reliving them and just feeling worse? This is where assessing for power and adjusting matters. Adjusting actually is in many ways the key word here, because you don't want to just sit in the emotion. You want to have something new you can do about it. But I want to encourage you all this. You will discover lots of new things that you can do with your emotional world once you understand what was really bothering me about it. So many times I've had feelings where I'm just like, oh, that was upsetting. I don't know what to do about it. But as soon as I got really strong clarity, I was like, oh, I know what I want to do about this. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I want to put a boundary in place here. I want to say something here. I want to not say something here. We get clarity. So that's the basic gist, Rhiannon. I want you to follow up, but if we get that information in the power column so you're really clear on it, you'll know how to listen to those emotions, but you won't be reliving them. You'll actually be remembering them and thinking, thank God I don't have to do that anymore. Now I can make an adjustment. And then you won't feel worse. That's the information, but we need to work at it. Okay. But do let me know what you think. Okay. I'm going to get to a couple questions. One more question on YouTube, then I'll jump back to Instagram for a second. Jen Loeffler, good to see you here. How do you present mind body to someone that definitely has a structural issue, spasmodic torticollis, but also checks a lot of TMS boxes? He is in 8 out of 10 pain with no med interventions having helped. Okay. The first thing is this. Whenever I hear a condition of any kind, spasmodic torticollis, which I think that's like neck spasms essentially. But I'm not sure. When I hear, because I'm not a medical doctor, I check out what it is. I start to investigate. So after the Q&A, I'll probably look into it. You can tell me if I have it right, Jen. But the other thing I like to do is I check with mind-body doctors. I don't check with just any doctor. If they're not aware of mind-body issues, it's like talking to a kindergartner in this regard. They don't know. But if I can go to a really great mind-body doctor, Howard Schubiner, Dave Clark, David Schechter, John Strax, these are some of my favorite go-to people. And I can check, wait, is this actually a structural issue? Because you're going to find a lot of doctors will say, yes, it is. It is a structural issue. And then when we talk to mind-body doctors or we look at the actual scientific literature, it turns out it's just another one that isn't. That actually is my hunch, but I'm not going to say definitively because I don't know yet. But it's possible that this is an issue that you're getting boxed in on, as if they're saying this is structural. Okay. But unless I hear that from David Schechter, Howard Schubiner, John Strax, Dave Clark, Andrea Leonard Siegel, some of the great doctors in the mind-body field, I'm not so sure about that. So I'm going to check it out. That's the first thing. Now, the next thing, let's say, okay, it is a structural issue. And even the mind-body doctors say so, right? Here's the other thing. A lot of times you can have a structural issue that is a real issue, but that doesn't mean it is the cause of the pain. That's a key distinction. You can have a real structural issue and not have pain. A good example of the opposite of this is phantom limb syndrome. They don't even have the structure and they do have the pain. We have all kinds of correlations and lack thereof that we see between the mind and the body. And what really happens is the mind drives the symptoms. Like with phantom limb syndrome, that mind is driving the symptoms. You're having a lot of symptoms and, it's all coming from the mind because there's not even a structure there. You can have the opposite happen as well, where you do have you do have maybe no pain, but then a structural issue. I would want to challenge that. And here's the thing, Jen, we're always going to have to deal with the mind of the specific sufferer. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Have a conversation with this person and listen to what they say. Just, follow what they say and encourage them to ask questions, to wonder about this. If you can get them curious about this, then we can open up some space. Now, if they're really resistant to it, you can say, okay, listen, I have information on it. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. And then you kind of let them be in it. Sometimes being stuck with the symptoms long enough gets people open to it. I once helped my brother with back pain, but he had to go 4 months in back pain before he could come to me about it fully. So it may be that you need to give it more time for them to be ready for it. Or it could be that something's going to crack open their interest or their belief in it. Like there's all kinds of articles coming out that are showing that mind-body's pain is not only real, but it's rampant. It's everywhere. There were articles in the New York Times, the LA Times. It's everywhere. One that recently came out was a colleague of mine, Nathaniel Frank, wrote in the LA Times about these experiences and how these are just the regular experiences. So there's a lot of help coming in this, Jen. Society is really turning about this, and that's going to make these conversations easier. But I probably would need to know more about the specifics of this person to make recommendations on exactly how to talk about it. But so far as a starting point, question whether this actually is a structural issue. Then question, even if it is a structural issue, is it actually causing the pain? And then I want you to think about, now, how do we access this person's mind? Because this is one of the things about mind-body medicine, mind-body psychology, mind-body thinking. It's the mind of the sufferer that matters. Nothing else matters. So let's just gather information, find out more. Jen, let me know if that's a good, helpful place to start, and we'll go from there. Let me just make sure I'm not missing questions because I do hate that. Okay. Back to Instagram. I see DMR LCSW has a question. Hi, I'm having a severe flare of muscle tension constriction. I'm sorry about that. This is definitely mind body. That's okay. You got a leg up there. My husband is facing open heart surgery, and I'm very anxious. I'm so sorry to hear that. And I can understand why that would cause symptoms. The pain is intense. Anything I should do. So I'm going to make a recommendation here, and then we're going to see if this helps. If it doesn't help yet, then I want you to do follow-up questions. It could be here. You could send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. You can come to my groups. You can get the seminars, whatever you want to do. But we've got to get you answers. So I'm going to give you my initial answer. You're first of all, really intense symptoms. Um, they they don't tend to be power column symptoms. The intense symptoms usually, especially when they've just had an onset, those are emotions column symptoms. Emotions column symptoms are really intense. Those are the ones where you can feel like really nauseous all of a sudden, or you can have diarrhea, or you can have spasms, you know, or migraines suddenly come on. The more intense it is, the more likely it is to be mind body, and the more likely it is to be emotions. Now, here's the next tip for you. It helps to know that it's mind body. You're already there. Now it helps to know that it is the emotions that we're going to look for, because it's not always the emotions. Sometimes it's thinking, and sometimes it's a power related thing. In this case, this is emotions column. That's good. That's more information. Now I'm going to give you the last piece of information that can give you a springboard into thinking about what to do about this. And that is, we've got to get specific. We need to know what is it about this that's bothering you? And I know that sounds silly, because with your husband facing open heart surgery, of course you'd be bothered by this. Of course you would be anxious. But why specifically? And what do I mean by that? Well, different people could be, anxious for different reasons. They could be anxious about mortality. They could be anxious that they have more that they want to say to this person, and now they don't feel like they can say it because they need to take care of them. They could feel overburdened by taking care of them. They could feel that the other person is suffering and they're so empathic that they just are really sinking into it too much. I just gave you 4 out of hundreds or even thousands of reasons that it might be. So the thing I would want you to do, sometimes people journal about this, whatever you want to do to think about this, or you can come work with me on it, and we'll find an answer pretty fast because I know where to look. You got to get specific. As soon as you know just what's really hitting you about this, that will make the distraction go away. The symptom won't need to be there. You might have a lot of emotional experience, but it'll take away the symptom. Let's start there. And I don't know how far along you are in knowing about the columns, so I don't want to sound confusing, but that's a good start to things as far as I'm concerned. Let's go from there, okay? All right, let me say hi to a couple other people. Chuck Brown Productions, that's Terry. Good to see you here. Rude Master 27, good to see you here, Rudy. And Resiliency Within, love that name. Good to see you here as well. Okay, jumping back to Scotty Styles. We were in the middle of a conversation here. Okay, getting doubts answered makes sense. To be less vague, the fear is around my relationship with my partner not working out, but in actuality, it is great. Okay, so the first thing I want to say, Scotty, even before I read on, is you're in a point of vulnerability. So it just makes sense that there would be fear, that symptoms could be up. Now, following along with what I just said to DMR LCSW, we could get more specific about it, which you may be about to do as I read. So I'm going to read on. So the fear is that it won't work in the future. This is a doubt, but we can't predict the future, and it's hard to have certainty about anything than what is happening right now. So the repetitive thoughts are that I keep going back to this doubt and checking in with myself to say, what am I thinking now? Like looping metacognition. That's a great phrase, metacognition. It's like, thinking about thinking, essentially. That's meta is, about the thing that's happening. So that's very helpful information, Scotty, just telling, oh, you said I had another question higher in the conversation. Not sure if you missed it or we'll get to it. Let me go back up to see what I missed. Okay. I think you're talking about the ones I'm talking about now. Okay. I just wanted to make sure to get to DMR LCSW first, and then I jump back to you, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. So you've identified much more specifically for me what's going on here. Now, of course, you already knew this. You live your life. You know much more than I do about what's going on for you. But here's what I'd want to do. In the doubt column, since we've located it as a doubt, there are 3 steps: observe, articulate, and counter. To observe a doubt is to call it into question. You've already done that. You're on to the fact that this is a doubt. If you weren't, I'd need you to observe it. What happens when it goes unobserved? People think it's true, and then they get kind of stuck in the doubt. That's not happening for you. You've even articulated it some, okay? But we're still on the articulation phase. We'll counter it and give you reason to believe that this is, can be different in a second, and then we'll continue to do it. But the first thing is I want you to get it more articulated. So you say the fear is that it won't work in the future. I want to get that even more articulated. Why won't it work in the future? Why do you think it won't? Is it something about you? Is it something about your partner? Is it something about relationships in general? Let's get it into very specific form and then we can attack it with a good counter. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a general counter, though, to think about. And the general counter is this: you can look at what has happened to you in the past. And one of the best counters you can make against it is to recognize I'm in a different space than I am now. If you're in a different space than you are now, then nothing from the past predicts the future. That, I think, is what's going to help you. So we need to understand, what are you expecting to repeat, and help you see how you're in a different spot. And by the way, if you don't feel you're in a different spot, the power column can get you to a different spot. Okay? That's a good start to the conversation with this. Let's keep talking about it. I see also you said doubt is a pathological liar. Sounds helpful to me too. It is. It is lying to you. This is whatever these repetitive thoughts are. I guarantee you they're wrong. But we're going to get specific about it, okay? So keep those questions coming, Scotty, and let me know how I did with those answers. All right. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, Jane Smith says, hi, Dr. Dan and Teresa and everyone. Thanks, Dr. D, for bringing your secret sauce here again today. Thanks so much, Jane. Jane very kindly says that I bring 3 columns to you guys, but also bring a secret sauce, which is, as she says it, that I care about you as individuals, and I know that how you are as individuals matters. I appreciate the compliment, Jane, but it's a no-brainer, to use a mind-body pun, because, of course, whoever you are does matter. And if we're going to help you feel safe in the world and valued and get those symptoms down, you got to be valued. So I'm going to bring it. Everything I'm bringing here is what I wished I had had. So I'm glad it's working out. Okay. Mary then said, thank you, Dan. That was helpful. You are right in that doubt is the issue. Good. It was just discouraging to have to go continually battle doubt day in, day out, sometimes even minute to minute. I understand that, Mary, but here's something that can maybe help you with that, which is you're not going to need to keep it up for that long. Doubt doesn't have as much stamina as you think. Just hold the line against it. It cannot win. As long as you are determined to beat it, it will lose. There's only one way it can beat you, and that's if you give up. If you keep at it, it's going to go away, and it's going to go away much faster than you think. I get the discouragement, but discouragement is a form of doubt. Keep at it. And if you need me to support you in it, I will. You're going to win. I'm certain. Okay. Jane then says, question, what did you mean when you said to take 15 minutes before bed to process the day? What does that look like? What do I do or feel? What is my goal, and how do I know if I've reached it? What if symptoms worsen? Okay. Lots of good questions in there. You said, I'm in the car, so hope I don't lose connection. Thanks in advance if I do. Hopefully you've got good connection here, but you guys can watch this on repeat as well. So this was something I said to Jane last week, and that is, if you're having symptoms, especially when you're sleeping or maybe when you first wake up, it can help to spend 15 minutes just being more mindful, more aware of your emotional state, your thinking state, whatever it is, because you are locating yourself in your mind more. When you go to sleep, you're going to be more connected. So here's the thing, Jane. My first answer is this: it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing that, generally, because that's setting you up for success. Now, I do have specifics as well, but I just wanted to encourage you that even if you can't figure out the specifics, if you're doing this, it's going to be good, except if the symptoms worsen. If the symptoms worsen, what does that mean? That's an emotions column experience, and I would want you to say, wait a minute, let me figure out what's going on here. Whatever I was doing, I got to figure out from my emotional menu what bothered me here. It could even be about having to do the 15 minutes. You could resent it. You could be confused and scared, and that could make the symptoms go up. But as long as you can locate and target what specifically happened here, you'll get those symptoms down. Now, assuming the symptoms don't go up and you're taking that time, you asked, what does it look like? What do I do or feel? There's a couple things. One, I'd want to go through basically with the 3 columns. How did my day go within these columns? Were there moments that I got upset? Or were there moments where symptoms went up? And I would just want to take some time to think about it. That's the emotions column work. In the doubt column, I'd want to think about, did I have doubts at certain moments? Did something increase my doubt? Did it go down? Just so that you're thinking actively about it. And in the power column, was I having a good relationship with me today? If not, why not? If so, why? Mostly, I just want you thinking about these thoughts because if you do that and then you go to sleep, your mind continues that thought process. It's like you've brought it online. Okay, I'll start there, Jane. Let me see what you think from that. Okay. Okay. Doris has said, "Thanks. I will work more on the core narrative. Please do please do know I'm here." Okay, so we can work on it any way you want, but I think that'll really help. Okay, then Rhiannon said, "Thanks, Dan. That's helpful. I have this feeling, I think from reading some other TMS work, that I need to experience the emotions again, but this just feels harmful to me. I much prefer the idea that I just identify what the emotion is and then choose what to do about it." We do not need to re-experience these things. Actually, one way of thinking about it, Rhiannon and everybody, is when you're having symptoms, you are re-experiencing it. You're just re-experiencing it physically. So, absolutely, we don't need to experience these more. We're already experiencing them more. What we need to know is what are they and what do we do about them? Which I know it fits with your preference, but you're in luck. It also fits with what to do about it. All right. Wow, we got a lot of questions rolling in. I will do my best to get to all of them. All right. Let's see. Scotty Style says, "Thank you. I think that's a great start." Yes, good. Dennis Fleck, I don't want to miss your question. I see it here. Hello from Germany. Hello, good to see you. It's late over there, and I'm glad you stayed up with us. Hope you're still there. What do I do when the pain takes the power again over? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question, but I want you to follow up, not just today, but you can come back to another Q&A. I do want to remind everybody I'm actually out next week for the Q&A, so we won't be able to do that, but you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. I will be slow on email because it's my girls' spring break, so I'm away. But I will get back to you shortly. The key is just to keep the questions coming and keep the answers coming. All right. So you also can come join me in. I have a group tomorrow if you want to squeeze in one. You can go to my website, www.crushingdoubt.org, if you want to. So let me see if I can answer this question. What do I do when the pain takes the power over again? So, Dennis, if you're thinking from a columns perspective, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, what happens when my symptoms make my power come down? That would be a power column question. So I'm going to answer that, but then I'm going to answer something more generally. If your power has been brought down, you just need to understand why. Why did it go down and how did it go down? Because then, if you can understand that, you will have the ability to think, now, what do I do to get back into power? So let's say somebody made you feel really bad. Well, you could say to yourself, okay, one solution is to recognize, wait, I don't even really respect that person's opinion. Why am I letting them tear me down? That would be one way to get back into power. However, since I don't totally know if I'm getting the question right, I'm going to answer one question that I hear in the background potentially that may be more what you're asking. You're talking about when pain takes over. When pain takes over, it can really be hard in multiple ways. And the columns will guide you in what to do. So you've got 3 columns. So this is a more general answer, but hopefully will be helpful. You need to locate within these 3 columns what's happening. Why is this pain happening now? What and as soon as you know why, then you'll know what to do about it. So our job, Dennis, is primarily going to be to use these columns to locate and understand, why did the pain go up? Why did the power go down? Why are you feeling bad? Maybe why did the doubt go up? These columns will interpret it for you. The emotions column will tell you why it started, onset or uptick of symptoms. The doubt column will tell you, why is it staying? And the power column will tell you what's happening in your relationship with you. These columns provide answers. Okay, let's go from there, Dennis. Let me know if that helped. All right. Dennis says, thanks. Okay, I do hope that was helpful. But listen, I want to answer your question, whatever it is, and keep following up. Let's get questions asked, and I'll get them answered. Okay. Okay. Jen Loeffler has a follow up. Yes, I think part of the problem is that this is my father. He thinks mind body is too out there. He gets angry when I bring it up. Okay. This is a follow up question, Jen. Here's my thinking. Even the most rigid thinker, even the most kind of very scientifically minded person can think mind body is too out there. Well, first of all, there are scientific terms you could use if it's helpful. Neuroplastic conditions is a very useful term. What it means is your mind changes and the brain changes, and that changes what goes on in the body. Now, it's changeable the other way as well. You might want to rely on the science. If he's scientifically minded, you could be like, look, here's actually a nice way in. You can always butter somebody up about who they are. You can say, you know what? You're a great scientific thinker. You don't just accept things. I totally get that. Why don't we actually look at the scientific evidence? Would that help you? Because on the PPDA website, the Psychophysiologic Disorder website association, there's huge amounts of medical studies in the New England Journal of Medicine, in JAMA, in the best journals in the nation. JAMA is the Journal of the American Medical Association, and there's evidence. So what we need to do is just find the right angle. And you can say to him, look, I don't want to bother you with this, but I want to help find the right angle. Do you think this would help? Would it help to find scientific evidence? There are these articles, as I mentioned, in the New York Times and the LA Times, whatever's going to make him feel like he can open up to it. For me, it actually really helped that Dr. Sarno was a medical doctor. I needed that. And I'm pretty open-minded about these things, but even I needed to know, because it was a physical issue, that it came from a doctor. So there are ways to open it up. What I'd encourage you is don't worry too much if he's not responding to it yet. We can just find the right angle and we can ask him. Now, he might say, I don't want you to talk to me about it at all. And you could say, okay, that's fine. I'll back off. But if you ever feel open about it, let me know. A lot of times, sometimes people say, where do you get your referrals? And I don't mean this in a joking way, actually. It's just true. My number one source of referral is pain. Because when people have it for long enough, they eventually are like, fine, just tell me. And I think that he could get there. We just need to find the right angle. I can help you find that, okay? Jane says, thanks again, Dr. D. Very helpful. By the way, I had a breakthrough this week. Awesome. I finally felt that my symptoms are primarily column 3, the power column. We'll miss you next week. Have a good one. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks again. Very excited about your breakthrough, Jane. Everybody, you're going to have breakthroughs if you work at this, and the columns are designed to get it for you. Okay? All right. Top Viral says, thanks for teaching my therapist and doctor. Well, it is my pleasure. I'll keep it coming. Please do ask questions as needed. I hope people are getting a lot out of this. Okay, jumping back to Karen Isaacs. Good to see you. Last night, the sniffles, they dissipated since our core narrative work came roaring back. I need a prompt. Okay, so they dissipated since our core narrative work, but then they came roaring back. I need a prompt of what to think. I thought about what's bothering me and also tried to not be mad at myself. Okay, here's a thing that can help you, Karen. Oh, actually, hold on. Then you had said more. I'm going to read more what you said first. I just joined and see Mary has the stuffy nose too. Me too. Just to give you hope, mine went away for a long time, came back, comes and goes. I know it's TMS and yet so annoying, so I relate to you, Mary. Another great Dr. Dan saying, doubt doesn't have the stamina. Good one to add to my list. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Okay, so back to your original question. One thing that can help you here, Karen, and I want to say hi to Demishashkov has joined us on Instagram. Thanks for joining us here. It's a little late in this session, but you could potentially get a question if you have it. If not, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. I'm away this next week, but we're talking about mind-body issues. Okay, so Karen, when you've got it in a good place and it went away for a long time, to me, that actually suggests that you did a lot of the power column work you need to do. Now, I want you to think of that as emotions column. It just came back. It's an onset or an uptick. So you may have mastered this already. Your doubt's way down. It was down even when you first came to see me, mostly. Now you've done power column work that got it into a really good place. Now you're free to use these columns exactly as they apply. You had an onset or an uptick. So I understand potentially being mad at yourself, but remember, you're a human being. You have a mind. It goes all over the place. So you need to think, what was the emotions column experience here? That's where we need to look. Okay. Now, I will be in group tomorrow if you're going to be there and we can work on it more, but we're going to get this. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. And that means we can figure out what to do about these things. All right. Somatic education. Good to see you here. I get tight tension and pain every time I have indecision. I think I don't know what to do. After I finally make a decision, I get relief. Any tips to make indecision easier? Yes, I do have tips on this, but I'm going to give you the starting tips. By the way, I want to say hi to Positive Wellness as well. Thanks for joining us on Instagram. All right. So first of all, I think it's great that you've identified the source. You know it's mind-body. You know it's related to something going on in your mind. You even know what it is in your mind. Now we need to know there are two ways to go about this. One is to get uh, to get more understanding of what the indecision is bothering you about. This reminds me of a question that I got from Instagram where I was saying, let's get more specific. It was, I think it was Scotty that I was talking to. We just need to get more specific. Why does the indecision hit you the way it does? What does it mean? Is it putting you back into an old mindset that is really hard? Is it because you're afraid of becoming powerful in the future? There are specific reasons about it. And these are emotions column questions. Okay? We can get more specific. That's one tip. Try to get more specific, and you probably can get more results even when it's happening. But secondly, and this is probably the more important one given what I'm hearing from you, if we do some power column work, I can help you really understand the core nature of your emotional experience much more. And it's like having an emotional mantra that allows you to understand what's going on with you more. If that happens, you're going to understand that your indecision isn't random at all. It's happening for very specific reasons that you can completely understand. And once you know that, you're going to have an easier time not being indecisive, actually. You're going to get to a place where you'll recognize, oh, I was indecisive because of this danger, or because I didn't think I could have power. Or I didn't think I could get what I wanted, or I didn't think it was safe to even admit that I liked a particular thing. These are all hypotheticals. But if we get the specific information, we'll know what to do. And that's the basic gist. So what I'd encourage you to do, you can certainly come back here to the Q&A. I won't be back for 2 weeks, though. So you could email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. You also could come to the group tomorrow. I will be here. You can get that on www.crushingdoubt.org. Or you can order the seminars, and this will start to give you the whole package of this. And what I mean by the whole package of this, let me be more clear than that. What I mean is it'll start to give you the whole package of how to understand mind-body issues and, how to think about them all, right? And that's going to start guiding you in this direction too. The main thing I want to encourage you is this is something we can understand in different ways that would change things. So you're not stuck. You just need information. I've got it for you. Let's just figure out how to get it to you. Okay? Thanks for the great question. Okay, Positive Wellness says, is there time for you to speak about the groups, how they work, when? Thank you. I will do that. And then, Catherine, I'm going to get your question in before I finish up for tonight. We're running way over, but we had just great questions, and I want to answer every question I can. So let me talk about the groups first. So how do they work? They are Zoom calls. They're Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You can come once a week, you can come twice a week, you can come 3 times a week. There's different plans. And every time I'm there, and it's a group that's on the Zoom call. They're not recorded. You don't have to come on screen at all. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You could just talk in the chat. I had a group member who was there for a long time, and she never came on screen and never talked in the chat. And I started to worry, is she getting what she needs? And I checked in with her by email one day, and she said it's been amazing. She just was listening. So there's lots of ways to do it, but you also can come on and you come on the video, and we have a discussion that's similar to what you've seen in these Q&As, because I know you've been here before, but we get much further because I can zero in on something, ask you a direct question, get much more information. And the more information I have, the better my answers are going to be for you. So that's part of it. The other way that they work is no matter who I'm talking to, you're getting more answers about what's going on in the mind-body world and how to understand it. So it's usually about an hour and 10 minutes, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes. The whole time, everybody should be making gains. Hope that's my goal in how to understand these columns. And every time people ask a question, I relate it back to the columns. It's like a consistent teaching session while you're also getting your questions answered. So these are on Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. I tried to make them at times that people really around the world could make work. So, even in Australia, they can make the Monday time work because that's early morning for them. Europe has times they can work, especially on Wednesdays, but sometimes on Fridays as well. West Coast can do it in the US. So those are the times. And also, you can just ask me questions. You can send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org, if you have more questions about it. Okay? Now, I'm going to take this last question, and we'll wrap up for tonight. Catherine Toomer. Good to see you. Hi, Dr. Dan. I'm working on a new action step to address the fact that my, quote, inner critic is so often chasing me, suggesting that there is a better place I could be than where I now am. I am deciding to make about every fourth choice as I go through my day be a, quote, less than the best choice. That's very nice to Give yourself permission for that. Somehow it seems like that will help me not be constantly plagued by my own choices. Okay, I do think that's helpful, and we need to find. So here's the way I would think about it, Catherine. That's one way out, but we're going to keep getting you more ways out. You've got a great start. Now let's keep at it. Now, my main way out of this, as I see it, is that inner critic is part of your core narrative experience. It's part of what you experienced, where it's like either, I mean, literally damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you were worried about being damned. That's what that inner critic is. And so you need to rebel against that. But to do that, you need to see it, right? So, and I think what I just laid out will help you see it. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's your core narrative. That inner critic is your past telling you you will always be this way. And that's doubt, by the way, telling you you'll always be that way. You won't be. You can put it down. What you can recognize is a lot of times those choices, they end up being great. Life has a life of its own. If we could help you feel trust in you, you're not going to be worried about your choices. I trust me a lot, and that makes me not worried about my choices. It actually relates to that indecision question from somatic education. You won't be indecisive or be worried you're not going to make the best choice if you feel aligned with you and you feel good about you. You're going to just start to feel like my choices are good. Okay, we'll start there, Catherine. It's a great question, and I want to answer it more. Let's follow up in 2 weeks or in group or wherever, on email, whatever you need. Let's just keep getting you answers, but hopefully that's helpful. Okay. Positive Wellness says, thank you for all you do to help. It is my pleasure. And thank you for the gratitude. It really does help when people let me know it's helping. It's what I'm here for. It's what I want to do. You're making my day and my night. Okay, guys, it is a pleasure. I hope we got some great questions. Well, they were great questions, but I hope we got great answers for you. Rita says, thanks, Dan. It is my pleasure. So I'll be away for a week. I will be back 2 weeks from today. So that's Thursday, March 28th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm generally here on Thursdays all the time. Catherine said, wonderful help in this moment. Beautiful. I love it. And listen, we're moment to moment beings. You need help in every moment. And the columns give you that structure. I'm here to hand that to you and build it with you so you can take it everywhere you go. Okay, guys, it has been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Please do let me know if you need anything. You can go to my website also for those resources, www.crushingdoubt.org. And it's been a pleasure, guys. Okay, see you soon. Take care.